I give an update to council via email earlier in the week and on the assessment, and we're continuing market progress. Thank you, Steve, for bringing that last time. We had a brief update last finance committee meeting. We're putting together kind of a tracker to start monitoring progress day by day, week by week, to be a little more diligent here. As I noted last Friday, we were at about 110 properties that were still, whether they're new permits or sort of existing permits that need to be finalized from a previous year for new assessed values. There was about 40 land splits, meaning pieces of property that the deed had been registered with that split existing parcels of land that need to be looked into and revalued, and for RV campgrounds for review. We're down in the properties area. We're about 40 down thus far, so about 70 from the 110 to this week. Also, code has gotten involved in some of the more simple, I should say, property kind of valuation. Hey, it's just an addition, and I need this, kind of what the feet of the addition are, so that Larry, our assessor, has the information he needs to input the assessment. Luna, our assistant assessor, has been doing some field work with them as well to help the code team, but also kind of learn the field process, also making some potential just longer term changes as we're thinking about this on codes doing kind of certificate of occupancy, some other pieces already when they're inspecting properties, and they might be able to do some of this code work just as part of their day-to-day business going forward for the new year. It's kind of an April 1st to April 1st timeframe for assessing. So, when code get that certificate of occupancy, they can either clear it out or have a notification system to the assessor that this is now certificate of occupancy. It's going to require a higher level assessment as opposed to waiting until the April 1st close date to sort of value all the new properties. Personal property has been done. Thank you to Luna, our assistant assessor. She's done a great job there and is trained up in that category. And that is kind of where we're at now. We're also looking at some potential consultants with assessing kind of the skill set that would be more in Larry's category that Luna doesn't currently have, on if there's a block of properties that can be done with a higher level of expertise that Luna doesn't have, but that we can subset from Larry's piece so that we can have additional attacking of these remaining properties to be assessed, so that we can set the mill rate based on the real estate value increase of lands that's here already in Ellsworth, the properties that are here in Ellsworth, and then also based on the new assessed values that can help mitigate some of the tax burden on the older assessed values. So still obviously need those calculations to be done before we can get to our mill rate and what those valuation increases will be based on the 2.9% levy increase. So there's that piece.
Could you translate that into the timing of the bills for Mr. and Mrs. Ellsworth?
Sure. So September 15th is the bill due date, as previous.
That Thursday.
So working back from that, we had originally anticipated having the bills done by, or the commitment done by August 11th, which is a week and a half from now, which would give the assessing or the IT and tax clerk's department, and they have a nice rundown I can share it with you actually that Nate created on the timeline for kind of what goes into a bill creation. So they need about a week and a half to 2 weeks to kind of finalize once they have the tax commitment from Larry based on the valuations that are envisioned both for new and existing properties. Then they do a process of kind of matching and a test environment to make sure that each of those properties in the Vision software that gets transferred into the other software system for printing lines up correctly. And then they do kind of individual pools of like tax liens that Sue may have, or tax credits that have already been processed into the system that they want to update in those individual properties, potentially pull city properties that shouldn't be sent a bill for assessed values. And that's about a week and a half period of time to get to rank the August or 25th timeframe, send it to Circle Printing, which is our printer for this service, and they mail it out there as well. to move forward. I have a high degree of confidence in the other pieces of the organization for once they get the commitment that they can fulfill those timeframes. The big piece is, can we meet the August 11th? It seems as though August 18th, the week after August 11th, is probably the latest we can go to get all this information in order to still send out bills, the week prior to the 15th, so that
So
people can.
let's shake this out here a little bit. Maybe I need to ask the question a little differently. How much time does Mr. and Mrs. Ellsworth have from the time the mailing goes out to pay their bills? I mean, it's common courtesy that a bill has 30 days to pay. And what I'm hearing is a polite, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, 2 weeks I think is the best we can.
It's
from
not fair to
September
Mr. and
15th.
Mrs. Ellsworth
Yeah, absolutely.
to get a bill. City Hall struggles to pay their bills within 30 days. I see a lot of them come through here that haven't been paid in 45 days or 60 days. It's not fair to Mr. and Mrs. Ellsworth to get a bill that doesn't have 30 days to pay.
Right.
And this is the fourth time this has happened in 4 years.
So I just wanted to add a little bit to that, Steve. I agree, believe it or not, I agree with what you're saying. With this timeline, they will have about 3 weeks, is what we're thinking. I understand, just let me finish. We'll have about 3 weeks, but we can't change the date due, but we are looking and considering changing the date it starts accruing interest, which will give them extra time, which will give them the 30 days, basically.
Will there be a stuffed envelope
Yes.
in their
Okay,
tax
yeah.
bill saying, hey, although it's due on the 15th,
Yes.
we understand that this is short notice, you have until blah, blah, blah.
1,000%. We've already been prepping that.
Because this is just
Yeah.
craziness, that the city of Ellsworth can't pay their bills within 30 days, and we're asking the people that are supporting the city of
Steve,
Ellsworth.
the city
to pay.
does pay its bills on time.
Baloney, read that.
No, we do. If there is a.
Oh, no, wait a minute,
if-
hold on.
if there's a
Let
bill
me
that-
respond
Wait,
to
one
that.
second.
Steve,
Let
let
me
her
res-
finish.
No,
Let her
you
finish.
interrupted me. Let me just tell you.
Like,
That, what you said
The
is
only way I
not
can interrupt
true.
you is because you keep talking. Let her finish.
What you just said is not true. I've sat here for 4 years, and the city does not pay their bills on time in 30 days. Go ahead.
If there is a bill that is past due in that pile, it is either A, because it got lost in the mail, or it was routed to a department prior to being routed to the AP department in finance, where then it is past due. We are not holding bills. Bills are not past due. We are not, all of our bills, as soon as the invoice hits the finance department, is being paid.
I've been here for 4 years, okay? What you're saying may be true today. I'm talking for 4 years. I have consistently seen bills not paid in 30 days. Why, I don't know, okay? I'm not saying that there's not a good reason for it. It's not fair that the city doesn't pay their bills in 30 days and they ask Mr. and Mrs. Ellsworth to do so.
You
It's
know-
not a fair deal.
Some of those invoices too have different terms, like a net 45 or a net 60. So there are different net terms on some of those invoices. So that may be too why you're seeing they're paid 45 to 60 days out, because there are different vendors with different net terms.
Yeah, and I should note that this is a big, to your point, Steve, upon arrival, that was definitely, endemic to the organization. It was told to me before I even arrived in City Hall that invoices weren't paid, there was a lack of trust in the organization. I know there was just sort of, there was a fair amount of budget freezes as opposed to utilizing of the TAN, so vendors stopped getting paid for a variety of things. And that was something that the finance team has worked really hard to rectify to make sure that that doesn't happen. If it does happen, in terms of you're hearing any reports of vendors currently that are not getting paid within their 30 days, or were, again, that can always happen for a check getting lost in the mail. It happens on occasion, or there could be a process that we've missed. Absolutely want to consider that, but also want to note to the credit of this finance team that in my experience, I haven't had any reports of late payments, beyond what's in their statutory areas. We've gone to great measures to make sure that vendors and contractors of the city of Ellsworth are paid on time and what they're owed, to be, a good partner in that. And I don't want the public to think elsewise.
To weigh into that comment, I agree, it's the best it's been in 4 years, as far as paying. But 4 years consistently, I have seen bills go over 30 days unpaid. And it's the best it's ever been right now in the last year, hands down.
And to your point, Steve.
4 years in a row.
And to your point, and I know I can understand your frustration too, because it's related to this 4 years of a tax bill being late. And you are 100% right that it is not fair to send out a tax bill, which happened last year, which is and I'm sure it's happened the 3 years prior, that, hey, it's due, and it's accruing interest. I mean, that's what it says in the letter. Last year, we had to send out kind of emergency notifications, hoping people could see on Facebook and on email and all these other pieces. And there's a systems issue which we're trying to address on this piece. I think we're getting better here. It's not we will likely get it out before the deadline, but not with those 30 days as you're noting. And we need to send a letter along with that that notes that the interest will not be accrued, and that, that the timeline will have that 30 days from when people would likely expect to receive that piece of mail in their inbox.
To
So-
clarify, if we can't get our bills out on time, I can accept that easier than pushing Mr. and Mrs. Ellsworth to pay within 30 days. That's my thing, is that, hey, if the city's going to be late getting their bills out, okay, they're late getting their bills out. But along with that, needs a 30-day grace period. So
I think we
that's
just-
our problem.
I think we just heard that we're giving a 30-day grace period.
Yeah, and Sue, I know, is also looking with our lawyer on some of the deadline pieces. I really feel like we need to fix the process here. We've, made some good progress already. I have a ton of institutional changes. I don't like the idea of pushing it to October because we have debt service payments, we have other things. And 8 years ago, when it was a zero, or a much lower interest rate to hold a TAN, I think that was more of a reasonable policy prescription. But nowadays, with the TAN interest rate, I really feel like we need to, have those funds coming in around the September 15th or thereafter and the other deadline, and not do an extension based on the process piece. But especially because we've had so much time, really worked very hard to fix our budget processes so we pass our budgets on time. So we need to have the other pieces of the organization have the same level of timeliness that the other departments have. So I hope that's answers some of your questions, Steve.
As long as Mr. and Mrs. Ellsworth is notified they have 30 days to pay their bill from the time that comes out of that envelope, that's fine with me. Whatever problem City Hall has is the best it's been. But that's our problem, not this.
Yeah, and we got a ways to go. We talked about that too. We're going to continue to optimize. I think one of the things that has been difficult has been trying to be so transparent about the problems that we're addressing, and in ways that I know a lot of folks find uncomfortable. You don't necessarily want to talk about what you're trying to fix, but that's, to me, I know you may or may not agree, Steve. I think you do. That transparency and kind of talking about it is really the only way to. As one mentor of mine said, you can bore people, but you can't ignore them. These are real issues. They need to be expressed and dealt with and put timelines on. And I think we're doing a lot better. But, it was 4 years of very tough sledding around here. And, we're getting a lot closer. And I know Ashley and Nate and Sarah and our entire team, we want to have the highest level of service in our finance category. It's absolutely critical to our
And it's
organization.
obvious. This finance department is far better than I have seen in my short 4 years here. I mean, this 1 year term is just amazing to me. Credit where credit's due. I'm just after Mr. and Mrs. Ellsworth getting fair treatment, have 30 days to pay the bill.
Absolutely.
And clearly communicate.
Absolutely. Thank you, Steve. That's it for me.
Wishful thinking.
Now Nancy's here, we can head out, right?
That was what it was looking like.
Just a quick update. We're still working on getting a final audit from RHR. Actually have a meeting scheduled today at 11 o'clock to discuss the final audit, and which we hope to see. During that meeting, I hope to bring up a chance to discuss a time that they can come into a finance committee meeting, as per your suggestion, Steve, to discuss the audit and the findings, probably looking at later in August. So working on that, At the same time, we're trying to shore up all the accounts for FY25, because my goal is to have all FY25, all the accounts, everything's properly accounted for and sent to RHR so we can get the process started for the FY25 audit. One of my SMART goals, as I told you, was to have this audit process started earlier, thus ending earlier, with Ashley's help and the rest of the finance team, implementing some of the things that they suggested, such as grant activity trackers, stuff like that, which Ashley's having a great time doing, and she enjoys a lot. So, but just ways that we can get better, and just to echo Steve's comments, I do know that the last 4 years, it's been rough, but let's just know that we've made a lot of changes, and that was last year. So goal, and that's what we're striving for. We know we have a lot of work to do, so that's what we're going to continue to do. That's all I got.
Great, thanks, Nate. Ashley, anything else?
No.
Staff?
Well, I guess you know, Sue Lassard, former Bucksport town manager and one of Maine's most expert municipal finance individuals, is coming in next week. Is it next week to begin sort of an audit, sort of our procedures and policies, and bringing a lot of the institutional support. I know coming in here with Arrive, Nate coming about a year and a half ago now. And Ashley, really almost 2 years for Ashley now. But not, we as a team need additional municipal experience in the finance piece, and we're really happy to bring Sue in to kind of take a fine-tooth comb to all of our policies and procedures. It is our goal to get these same awards that Tammy Moat, when she was finance director, was getting nationwide recognition for the level of excellence in the city's finances. And their budget processes. And I think when we began the budget changes last year, we had a war room upstairs where we just took down, there's about 10 of us in there every single day to build a new budget from scratch upon arrival, considering what we came into. And I took one of Tammy's trophies and put it up there and put a 2026 question mark over the date. I think our budgets are getting closer. The budget process itself to being able to submit, they're clear, good narratives, a lot of input there, trackable, online, accessible to the public. The reconciliation, the other policies and procedures beyond our budgeting need to kind of start matching that piece on how and how transparent we've been with the other budget processes, so that whether we're all here or whether we're not, you can come in here, take a book, have the programming procedures outlined expressly, and operate it, because if you mentioned, Steve, it's getting more and more difficult to find staff, not just in the public sector, but in the private sector, in this category of accounting and pieces. And as the city grows and the accounting is getting more complicated, we need more resources there. So really happy to have Sue on board with this. She's been a great resource to the organization prior, when she was Bucksport town manager, and given us advice for free. So now happy to have her really focused on this piece, which she's such an expert at on a consulting basis. So,
That's great.
yeah.
Public? Jared?
Welcome back.
Morning, Jared Wilbur, resident. I haven't heard much lately about the courthouse road, and I was just wondering if you might be able to give a little update on where we're at as far as the funding goes, and where the state is on their funding, and when we might start moving forward with that project.
Yeah, I did give a pretty full update at the last city council meeting. I don't know if you missed that one, Jared.
I might have.
Okay, but happy to. I was going to try to pull up my memo on it. Happy to. It's on the website too. The
Okay.
agenda. There's a full. There's a Q1 and Q2 finance breakdown of monies expended to date. I freaked Steve out because I said 170,000 for a parcel that was previously discussed as 30,000, but quickly rectified. It was 30,000. The Adams parcel has closed. The Merrill parcel, we're dealing with a sublease legal issue that should be closed soon. And the Wardwell parcel closes once the Adams and Merrill parcel closes. So, but however, we already have right title and interest. The DEP, we recently got some good news, would potentially consider the road a separate project, which would pull us out of like the common scheme of development category of, which could be like a 120-day review process, even with like the less than 5 acres of impermeable that we'd designed towards. So we'd be able to potentially be in like a 20-day review process for permit by rule with the road, and beginning to start the construction aspects later this fall. Fortunately, because of we were able to narrow the road requirements a little bit. The vernal pools didn't turn out to be vernal pools in that area. We no longer have to build the construction road off Long Lane, which was a potential. We're just going to all stick to that one area. That should be a little bit of a cost savings. But I also had some good conversations with Steve, another citizen, about consideration of like a clerk of the works, I think is you call it here in Maine. It's I think it's certified project owners, what we refer to it as in other areas, to have a little bit more kind of coordinating between the pieces that the Public Works Department with surplus fill and our own materials and own expertise could apply to the job. In addition to the the electric, the paving, which would definitely be a private contracting piece, and timelines for how these are moving forward. We also have a new director of planning and urban development coming in likely in the October 1st timeframe, who has a lot of expertise in this area, but to kind of help project manage so that I, as city manager, can focus on more things, including maybe finance and some of the other pieces of the business, and not so much in project management on this piece. So I think bringing in a clerk of the works is something that in the next couple of weeks, even though it might be a little more expensive, I definitely want to consider bringing to council just to have an independent kind of authority pushing that forward. I try to be as transparent and public about the accounting of these pieces. The finance department now has a new GL code that's sub-selected to just the road project, so it'll make it easier for me to do the accounting in the near term. But that's kind of where we're at. On the road, the state has their funding through the bond release, which happened, I think, June 1st. It might have been May 1st. I can't. And so that funding was released. They should be going out. Actually, we had an update with them recently. They should be going out to bid because I think the design is ready for contractors for the work very soon. So I don't believe that's posted yet, but as soon as that's posted, I'll maybe we'll do a repost. There's a bunch of great contractors that are around here that'll move forward on their piece of the work. Our biggest next steps, the first step is obviously just getting the submission into DEP based on the stormwater design, which is their kind of sign off, which would allow construction to come forward. We also, because of the city done road, there's not a express on, it doesn't have to go through planning board or those pieces. It's really approval of the council, but we want to have an advisory meeting with the planning board. They have expertise in roads, and we are applying city design standards to the road, even though it's not necessarily a requirement here. We want to live up to those same standards. So Andrew McCullough, our engineer on the project, is using those city design standards to move forward. I also may be looking to reach out to the county. One of our citizens has been asking about potential funding for the project. I noticed some things that were not exactly accurate that were talked about the road project at the last county meeting. I don't think there was anything intentional about that, but it reminded me that I should probably go over there, also see if we can, if they would be willing to consider additional funding. It always never hurts to ask. We also have the bill in the state legislature on that piece, and would look at tax incremental financing districts. Our economic development director is leading a process for a potential redesign of those districts that this could be a part of in order to kind of shelter the growth increase so it doesn't affect our future revenue sharing, which as we get more and more growth in Ellsworth, it's great in terms of it can help in valuation increase. It can help lower the mill rate. We're likely to see a mill rate lowering this cycle. But at the same time, as the growth rate increases and your mill rate decreases, you can also start risking revenue sharing too with the state, which I know in other cities and towns has triggered like $1 million loss in state revenue sharing. So being cognizant of how much increase in value the city is seeing and how much is in its TIF districts and not, I think considering our growth profile is going to be really important to look at, and especially in this area in the urban growth zone, that'll be important to look at. Also, the other piece was potential utility hookup fees that would help recover some of the costs for water, wastewater, electricity moving forward. So, and then the big one I think in the near term will be blasting and dealing with that. That's kind of the larger variable, although the initial test borings seem to imply that this judiciary's parcel had more of that issue than the road in. But I believe SW Cole, we're getting a final report back on what their tests are of the road. So,
Awesome, thank you.
sure.
Also, if I could just speak on one other thing real quickly. I didn't weigh in on it Tuesday night because the workshop was kind of dragging out a little bit. But one of the things, so it did go to referendum, 55-45. But I think if there was another box on there, other than yes, no, maybe like a box that said I don't care, that would have been like possibly my check mark. And as a citizen of Ellsworth, what I care about is my taxes and where my taxes go. So if we have 3 golden eggs that could come to town, what I look at is what can those 3 golden eggs do to help lower my taxes. If they want to come to town and they're going to pay the impact fee and they're going to build a building and they're going to hook up and pay the water and the sewer, I really feel like those are the viable options. I understand the process of going forward and vetting, and I don't want a Bob's pot shop. I want something that's discreet, but I want it to look nice. And when the tax bill goes out, I want it to be worth something to help offset my bill. And I don't know if grandfathering or letting a certain business come in and put a door right next to their other door is really going to help the citizens. I feel like putting them in, quote, the high rent district is what's going to really help benefit the community. And now with these large parcels, if they do go in that zoning, I think something that might be worth looking into is if you went 500 feet from door to door versus 500 feet from the property line, because some of these parcels are mixed use. And if those commercial properties decide, because commercial properties have to diversify, so if you all of a sudden end up renting to a place of worship and you want to also land lease, or somebody wants to build, but they're 1,500 feet away, 2,000 feet away from that place of worship, but they're still on the same property, it can't happen. So I really feel like maybe looking into the wording of the 500 feet from door to door versus the 500 feet from property line, because if one of these big commercial places rents to a place of worship, that could almost shut down most of that whole zoning area.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
And I hope you guys have a great weekend. Thank
Yeah,
you.
too, Jared. Thank you as always.
Yeah, I don't know, Council, if you want to, I know I was only able to chime in for that because I had a family responsibility I had to attend to. Yeah, that's an interesting point, Jared. There is kind of I think in general, I just think from a broader perspective, like this isn't going to make or break the taxpayer piece either. There's so many other pieces that could. So we're spending a lot of time on this piece, and that's, there's an opportunity cost. I think of some of the ordinance changes, some of these other pieces that could really spur economic development. So there's one piece of me that just wants to get to resolution quicker here so we can get to other pressing business. I know I initially said, Jared, that was kind of my initial piece, was the only thing we get is the tax revenue increase. So can we just have can that be the metric? Is just what piece? We'll pick top 3, and whatever is going to invest the most in Ellsworth, that's the winner. Who's gonna create the most additional value? We don't want a zillion Bob's pot shops all over. We don't want to fundamentally change the character. Then I went back and forth. I was like, well, we have these 2. I know there's a lot of pressure there. We have these 2 medicals. In terms of not changing the landscape, just letting them go to retail. But I don't know. what is the council's, what did you think the tenor of that? We had to cancel a meeting with Sarah on cannabis follow-up. We're going to do it today. But what did you all kind of find in the end of that?
I think the way I saw it is the council and staff and planning board, the discussion was still I think it's still 3. And then the medical, because there's discussion about, medical provides a different service and, let the medical, if the owners of the medical businesses want to open a retail store, they can apply like everyone else.
Okay.
I think the idea is keeping, again, we're still coalescing around things, but I think the general consensus was, focusing on the commercial, district plus, basically High Street, up until, I think when the commercial district starts, maybe before it, because I guess the Shaw's Mart, that's not in the commercial district, and it seems like that would be a good place to also have that type of business, so further defining that. But yeah, 3, we don't want to do a merit, analysis, because it's so fuzzy, and I think it lends itself to lawsuits rather than just saying, I think the idea is having a pretty robust, hey, you got to show you can satisfy all the state and our performance standards. If you make it through that, then if there's more than 3 businesses that want, then it's a lottery.
And if they just happen to be all next to each other, that would be
Well, no,
okay.
and then we talked about 500 feet, and so
That's
Jared
the
brought
500
that up, because, we're looking, in the state regs, it's 500 feet from schools and other, sensitive areas, 1,000 feet from drug-free zones, which are our parks and schools. So we think that really further does it, but then, yeah, we don't want them next door to each other. So we're talking about 500 feet property line versus a door, and I think that's where we can kind of look at, okay, what is 500 feet property line? Does that make it so there's just almost nowhere to build these versus, but we also are trying to align it. We did a discussion as well, shouldn't we treat, liquor and, alcohol sale businesses the same, or try to at least make them consistent? And I think that was a valid point. So I think that what the discussion is, as I felt it kind of coalesce, was the 2 medicals can continue, 3, maxing 3, likely on just High Street up, to Myrick and 1 kind of, down that commercial area. Don't allow them to be right next door to each other. We thought maybe a limit on square footage, because we don't want super weed mart coming in and, having some massive, we also want there to be competition, between the 3. So these are just all, these are other ideas people brought. It's not,
Yeah, of course.
nothing's final, and I think, making it so there's not so many, they can't be right next door to each other. And I think but I agree, Charlie and Jared, if there's a way, I don't know if we can legally, list it, show us the projected property value increase, maybe we can, I don't know why we couldn't. And, so I think, maybe there is, who knows, but maybe that could be, I think it's a valid thing to pursue, because at the end of the day, the reason I'm supportive of it primarily is I want this to be an economic benefit to the city. It's already, the towns around us have it to some degree or other. I think we're missing out, considering our location as the gateway to Acadia. If it's jobs, and if it increases revenues to the city, and it helps mitigate tax burden on everyone else. I think that's really the big benefit. I mean, the cannabis is everywhere. People can grow it themselves and go get it anywhere. We might as well, from a city, find a way to benefit it. And I think that's where the conversation went, Charlie. I think the idea is we're still shooting on for the same schedule we had of September, planning board and council review and potential final vote.
September.
I agree with you. Let's get it done and move on. That may require this issue being on the September workshop agenda for the council.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's more that was discussed, there was good conversation. People, should we have any limits, free market versus, all that. I think it was a really good, robust conversation, and I think we're approaching getting this done.
Cool. Is he accurate or is he lying about that whole thing?
Say it again.
Is he accurate or was he lying about it?
You captured it well. I feel like we're on the right track. And again, September workshop and final vote. We all, too, commented on how productive it felt to be here with the planning board and the workshop model where we could have open conversation. It was a really collegial meeting, really collaborative on trying to find the solution. It was great. And we're getting there.
Awesome. Yeah, I felt like the previous one with the planning board too was
Yeah.
had just a good. It's just good to have the arguments.
Should be
get-
more of those, really.
Yeah.
In my view, I'm not in favor of the tilt that it's headed, but the process has been very good.
I will say, Charlie, your point on capping it at 3 but allowing the other 2 to convert, when you first said that, I was like, that makes sense to me. But as the discussion evolved, we had people that were in the industry speak to, and just noting that like the medical business still provide, like Presque Isle, the woman from has a store in Presque Isle was, I think, helpful. She's like, Presque Isle, similar size city to Ellsworth, but it has much, lower levels of traffic and people coming through.
Yeah.
They have 2 retail and like 4 medical, and I guess they're all plenty busy, and they're also competing with each other, and so just I think who knows, it's kind of just pulling it out of the air, but I think the conversation where everyone was at, it's like, no, we want to make sure there's both. If we're gonna, part of it is if this is gonna be an industry and something that people utilize, we should offer both, and we'd want to avoid potentially kind of cannibalizing the medical side of things. And I guess it's a lot cheaper. Medical's cheaper. The taxes are lower at the state level, like significantly. So there's a lot of people that have been
That space.
in that space and relying on those businesses, and so we didn't want to. I don't know, and who knows, right? I think we're kind of just, and then at the end of the day, let's just pick something and then see what happens, and if it doesn't work, we can change it.
Yeah. Although once they're built, that's my big piece. I'm talking to others, just to change the landscape. I think that's why I kind of went to just let the 2 medical and let's see how that, just to not change, to make it Pod City. You had 3 more, now you got 5 pod shops in Ellsworth. And they got big flyers outside, and it's just like, ugh.
So that's why there was a lot of discussion about we don't want like the air guy that's a big joint or something, floating around. Like we want it to be like, and you see it, you go from town to town, and it's like, yeah, Bob's Pot Shop. It's like a shack on the side of the road, and
Yeah.
you're like, no. But then you go to other communities, and I remember one, I was like, what is that? And they're like, oh, it's a cannabis store, and it looks like a spa. I think there's ways to at least help integrate it to some degree. I don't know how much control we ultimately have over that, but I think we can at least say, hey, here's the sign requirements, here's the,
Yeah.
the look. We're talked about tinted windows, so you're not just looking in and seeing bongs everywhere or whatever. But yeah, it's a little fuzzy.
I just want to add to that, too. I think one of the really helpful things that will come to the next meeting is Sarah's going to put a side-by-side, because we found some of the things we were concerned about are already state requirements. So looking at things we were looking at for our ordinance, let's see where they match with state. We may keep them in ordinance so that if the state law changes, we can still be there. But it's going to just be good to have that grounding in what the state currently requires. And the other thing I thought of, Patrick, that I think is important is looking at the ownership, because we're talking about competition and doing what we can to ensure that we've got different ownerships of the different
multiple
enterprises, so that it is competition and not Bob with 3 different. Poor Bob, we have no respect for Bob.
Poor Bob.
We can call him Robert.
Okay, well, anyways, yes. So there's, again, really thoughtful and trying to thread the needle on, it is a controlled substance, we need to treat it like that. But also, it's legal, so how do we manage it, same as liquor stores?
Yeah, that was my big kind of switch around on, originally I was kind of in Jared, like the golden ticket. If sure, the Superstore, you want to build it up in the Myrick Street area, let's get some construction up there, build a $15 million pot shop that's a tourist attraction. You've seen them in Portland, and it's actually a citizen last night talked to me at the concert they had out here on just, hey, like some of those areas look like Apple stores or these giant, and there would be, as opposed to converting a smaller building that's not going to have it, and then you've got a bunch of, and then I kind of flipped around and I read all the Freakonomics episodes about the economics of pot and how unstable this industry is, and that it's because it's a huge illicit market, and then the taxes, so then you get to these areas where the illicit market can better compete than the taxes, and you kind of defeat the purpose, and now this THCA stuff, and then they really were stressing the importance of, with this, I think cannabis is probably a better drug than alcohol in many ways. It doesn't lead to as much, violence or those types of things that was mentioned in the podcast by the person in Colorado who has the most experience with this. However, it is still an addictive, whether it's chemically addictive or mentally addictive drug, and for-profit companies have an incentive to try to get as many people as repeat customers, daily or weekly users, as opposed to your tourist sort of recreational, hey, every once in a while I'm going to go buy a pack of joints. So when you have more and more of those organizations in your city, they are going to be trying to get more and more clients. And we have seen a big spike in daily usage of cannabis since legalization has occurred. It's actually, I believe, it's overtaken alcohol as the largest drug or substance use of daily use disorders in the United States. So these two things clearly go hand in hand. When you legalize this piece, we've had a big increase. I don't think it's necessarily as bad as alcohol, but also when you have a bunch of private companies doing branding and marketing and trying to get daily customers for that product, I do worry about the citizens and others.
I did listen to that podcast on my drive from Augusta to here that night. It was informative to set the stage
Yeah.
for the conversation.
I want to weigh in on Jared's subjects. First, he talked about the courthouse and then the marijuana event. But the marijuana event, when it was on the ballot, I voted against recreational marijuana in Ellsworth. I really didn't want to see it, but Mr. and Mrs. Ellsworth voted for it. 55 out of 100 people that voted in the presidential election, which was a high turnout. So it's here to stay. We got to find a way to do it. I don't, like I said, I didn't want it at all, but it's here. Where I struggle with it is violating the free market. I with you, I don't want 25 pot shops banging heads on who's going to survive. I understand that. But we don't regulate the tire stores. We don't regulate the cigarette stores. We don't regulate the alcohol stores. The state all of does that, okay? But we're not making all of these special rules. And the free enterprise thought pattern trumps everything about this subject to me. Do I want it? No. But let free enterprise figure it out. I don't believe that we should be regulating the hell out of this and picking a lottery and limiting the people and all of that, because what happens if government regulates this so bad that the three winners fail? What do you do then? My feeling is let the free enterprise work itself out. Do I want it? No. But Mr. and Mrs. Ellsworth didn't, they said that they wanted recreational marijuana. I don't believe that we should be regulating one industry and not the other. How many car washes are in town? How many banks are in town? How many places to cut your hair? This is a commodity that is here in America to stay. The free market's going to work itself out. And I don't want to lose that perception. Secondly, about the courthouse. Jared had asked about it. I just want to go on record again and say that, I was against this courthouse thing, the city developing this property, but it's here to stay. I maintain that if you're going to have engineering approvals, you're going to have all of these money that's been spent on design work. It doesn't cost much to do an RFP to see what it costs to have a contractor do the whole thing, as opposed to dividing this up before it goes out to bid and trying to pick out what you want to do and what you don't want to do, or have Public Works do it all, or have Public Works do this piece and do that piece. Put the whole thing out to bid. Put an RFP out there. Once you get your RFP out there and you get your pricing back, then maybe there's some conversations to be had to maybe control some costs with our own resources. Perhaps. But that's where the conversation needs to start, not prior. Handpicking what you want to do and then letting this piece out to bid is dangerous. Put the whole thing out to bid. If you can't stomach the bid that comes in, sit down with the contractor or sit down with your own people and say, where in this? Is there some economies that we can change this a little bit, and will the contractor agree to it? Deciding what we're going to do first is dangerous, because what if they're going to take the ledge to build part of the road and put a crushing plant in there? I mean, you're making too many decisions when it costs nothing more, in my estimation, or not much more, to put that out to bid when you've got your prints already. You've got your plans out there. See what it costs, and then delineate that from there. Is it manageable? What's the opportunity cost by using our own people? These people do it every day, our people don't. We can't maintain the roads we got, and we're building a new one. So I think breaking that apart before you start selecting what you want to outsource is dangerous, because you could put the whole thing out and then decide what you think you could optimize to bring that number into play. Just food for thought.
Well, I 100% agree, Steve.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah.
So,
That's a good point.
yeah, I totally agree. And once I get the prints back that are final for the road piece, absolutely on your point. And I've appreciated.
See what you get, and then start breaking things apart.
Yep, absolutely.
Don't break it apart and then see what you get.
Absolutely, Steve. We'll commit that now. I think, Steve and Patrick too. I think there, to your point, there are some pieces that would be in our wheelhouse to do, but that doesn't cost us anything to put it out there. And if it's an outrageous bid that we want to work down, and we feel like there's pieces that we can do a lot cheaper from the opportunity cost, then we'll have the data to do it.
And you're going to see how people lay out their pricing in
Yep.
your total price.
And we have not just yourself, but our public works team and a lot of people experience building roads, and Andrew, our engineer, and that has a lot of experience here that can help us in those pieces. And then I think maybe give yourself and the public, Jared and others, a little bit more cost consistency. I know we talked about the clerk of the works as a potential way to do that too, but maybe I could see this as actually being a better first step. Maybe a clerk of the works is still something we consider, but
I'm not saying anything against the clerk of the works. I think you need that for management purposes. Any project needs a clerk of the works for management. Otherwise, you have cost overruns and decisions being made by all the wrong people.
yep. But yeah, I appreciate. I know you weren't for this project to begin with, but also
I'm not, but it's here, and so let's not make any big of a mess than I feel it is. And I don't think putting it out to bid costs us that much money.
I'm in.
You're here, Steve. Look at that.
I don't want to end on agreement with this.
Well, too
can
bad.
fight
Meeting over. See, we disagreed on when the meeting was. So
There we go.
I gave that to you. Anything else from anyone?
No.
Great. Happy Friday, everyone.
Thank
Cheers.
you all.
Weekend.
Good weekend.
Yeah.
Looks like